Sigh.
Well, what's wrong, buddy?
Well, I just realized this mushroom supplement I bought isn't actually made with mushrooms. It's made with something called myceliated grain?
Myceliated grain?
Oh no!
I'm sorry to tell you, buddy, but myceliated grain is a sure sign of a poor quality mushroom supplement.
Well, dang. I wanted mushrooms, not brown rice. What should I do?
Well, you should support a small batch producer from right here in the Midwest. Keweenaw Apothecary.
Keweenaw Apothecary, tell me more.
Keweenaw Apothecary specializes in high-quality mushroom extracts from Michigan, and they always use real mushrooms, never myceliated grain.
That sounds like exactly what I've been looking for. Where can I order?
Well, you can find them at keweenawapothecary.etsy.com. That's KEWEENAW apothecary.etsy.com. Be sure to read their many excellent reviews.
Thanks, buddy. I don't want no low-quality mushroom products from a factory. I want Keweenaw Apothecary.
Wowie wow!
Thanks for joining us for another awesome episode of the Wild Edible World podcast. I'm only one of your hosts, but my name is Michael.
And I am Steve. We have a bit of a foraging celebrity here with us, at least in my opinion.
Out of all of our guests so far, this might be the most illustrious. But right now we're very happy to be joined by Alan Bergo, professional chef and forager author of the Forager Chef's Book of Flora, which is one of my favorite books to reference. I've referenced it several times in our show.
Sure.
Made a couple recipes. They're really, really awesome. So thanks for joining us, Alan.
Hey, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Definitely, yeah. So you've been making a kind of splash a little bit regarding the Minnesota DNR, new collection rules and stuff. I wanted to, wondered if you could give us a little bit of a quick background on, what's going on in Minnesota.
Yeah, so, man, it seems like, I want to say 2 months ago or something, we started to get, my friends and I, we started to hear some chatter and, things coming, leaking down through the grapevine about possible new regulations coming down. And it was kind of troubling. We were like, well, so why is this happening? Why do they feel the need to do this right now? So one of my close friends is the president of the Mycological Society, so he started reaching out and trying to talk to the DNR, and he just kind of got stonewalled. They wouldn't give us any information, they wouldn't talk to him, they wouldn't set up any kind of meetings or anything, and that was troubling because we have been, the Mycological Society, but also people like myself and other chefs have been involved in the rule-making process when new regulations happen. So 10 years ago, they had a work group where a number of us, myself included, advised the Minnesota Department of Agriculture and the Minnesota Department of Health on basically the creation of their mushroom laws. So we've always been involved here because I don't like to call myself an expert, but I am definitely friends with experts. I offer some opinions and viewpoints that are unique because I have been in the chef world, also the world that sells products to chefs, and I also have experience in the wild food world. So those three things, it's hard to find people with those three parts of the experience. But anyway, basically the regulations they're proposing they don't seem that crazy at face value, but there's kind of a lot that goes along with it. And really what we want is we want a seat at the table when regulations are made, but also we want to live in a state where rules are based on science. So what they're proposing is just a 1 gallon bag limit of wild mushrooms in state parks. But that's kind of a canary in the mine about just the DNR's knowledge about mushrooms in general. I mean, first of all, and it's kind of splitting hairs, but there's some mushrooms that don't even fit in a gallon bag.
Yeah, that could be less than a gallon bag could be less than one mushroom, or it could be all the mushrooms in the forest, depending on what you're collecting.
Yeah, exactly.
So this seems like it's an interesting Venn diagram that you present with your history and your background, and it makes absolute sense that people in the field should be consulted when making big decisions about that. So I imagine there's a lot of intersection there too with the hunting and fishing world. Are any of them getting involved?
Not yet. We have gotten a lot of people involved though. So first we had the Star Tribune picked it up. And then after that, let's see, NPR picked it up. I went on NPR, and then after that, at the same time, we had the Wall Street Journal pick it up. We've been talking to my friend Sean Sherman and Linda Black Elk, who I know that you know, Michael.
Oh yeah.
From the Harvest Fest. So we're delighted to have them on board and kind of see how they can add additional voices to this. But like the one thing that's really been bugging me lately is like the non-science arbitrary way that laws are getting introduced like this. So I don't know how much you guys know about foraging regulations across the country. And again, I'm not like an expert either, but it's basically a patchwork, and like every state basically has like different laws, and a lot of times these laws are in conflict, and that can make it's a lot to unpack. That can make sense for certain things, but for a lot of things it doesn't. Like one example that's kind of playing devil's advocate to what I'm talking about is in Oregon, they should have a regulation against using rakes in the woods, which I'm totally for.
Yeah,
because
right.
people are using that. You know, what are they using that for? They're trying to look for matsutake. Using that, and that's very disruptive. You know, that's not a good thing to be doing, and no one should be doing that. In Minnesota, first of all, it's illegal for any commercial mushroom harvest to go on in any state land, whether it's state forests, state parks, anything. That's all illegal. There's no commercial stuff allowed at all. So this is, and I bring that up because the DNR in Minnesota have now mentioned like people using rakes in the woods, but I'm like, that's so strange because I'm one of the like extremely few people who even knows where matsutake will grow in the Midwest, and there is not a commercial matsutake harvest here. So you guys are like parroting information that you've heard from other places that's not necessarily applicable to Minnesota. And then this gets so much better. This is I think this is my favorite example, and it's the one that people usually are like, you gotta be kidding me. I can quote this here. Hang on, let me find that quote. In the NPR article, they quote the DNR because the DNR, they want to regulate more than mushrooms. So there's going to be more regulations coming down the line. This is like the shot across the bow.
Sure.
So we need to get involved now to have our voice and our opinions, the opinions of experts, heard, because this is the kind of stuff that we're dealing with. In the NPR article, and I'm quoting a guy named Pierce, they said in regards to regulating wild blueberries, they said bears that use the berries, they're instead going to be trying to find garbage cans. Okay, so that takes a little bit to unpack, but it's so messed up that like I don't even know where to start. So like first of all, animals are used to disruptions in their food supply because there's droughts. Like in 2019, I didn't pick a single blueberry, and I bet the bears weren't picking many blueberries either. Well, yesterday, a couple days ago, I was picking wild blueberries up in Nashwauk, northern Minnesota, by Hibbing, and I saw a bunch of bear scat. And guess what was in the bear scat? They weren't even eating blueberries. They were eating choke cherries. I know bears eat tons of blueberries, but they eat all kinds of fruit. And when animals have a disruption in their food supply, they're just going to switch. And secondly, bears are not going to make a choice between garbage and blueberries. Bears are like massive mouths that all they live to do is eat. They're going to have a garbage sundae with blueberries on top. They're going to eat both. This is not like, oh, the bear has to choose. That's just silly. And finally, the humans any human thinks that they can outcompete a bear for food? I mean, this is so foolish and absolutely illogical. It makes me just want to scream. We would need like 1 million foragers to go to northern Minnesota and try to pick every single wild blueberry that they could. This is insane. This could never happen. Like, you know. Then I have another good example that someone passed on to me from a call they had with a DNR rep from Ohio. So the woman said that it was illegal for them to be picking mushrooms. And then when they presented her with the law that said, actually, it's legal for us to pick mushrooms here, this is what she said. This is straight from the DNR reps. Like, you can't make this stuff up. She said, okay, well, so you can cut them, but you can't pick those mushrooms because they're technically a root ball.
Oh my God.
Oh.
Okay, so what? Okay, so what? Now we're making words up. Like, have you guys heard of a root ball mushroom?
No.
Yeah, definitely not.
I mean, sclerotia maybe, but that's not what I would use to describe that either.
Yeah, like Chagas is sclerotia, truffles are a sclerotia, a chanterelle is definitely not a sclerotia.
No.
Yeah, it's like last time I checked, most mushroom hunters they're not looking for sclerotias. I mean, with the exception of chaga. You know, so it's more than just
that Facebook. That's just Facebook group comments in real life. People like, oh, you're gonna hurt the mushroom, having absolutely no understanding of how mycelium networks actually work.
Yeah, this is like if Facebook comments with legal regulations. Yeah, so it's more than just a bag limit, and there's all these other things behind it. Like, we could be living in a state that has laws that are not made by science and that are arbitrary, that people are just like shoving through it because we don't even know why. So they're pushing it to the public comment stage, and if this goes to the public comment stage, we have a group of like a lobbyist, a couple lawyers, all the foraging educators, and myself. If that goes to the public comment stage, we won't be able to do anything, and we're going to be dealing with these regulations for like 15 to 20 years. You know, so it's like this could be a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, but I like that you provide a little bit of nuance there, that it's not exclusively anti-regulation. You know, you're not saying that there aren't reasons to have some regulation. So do you think do you have a better proposed way to maybe better word a mushroom bag limit or regulation like that?
Yeah, and so one of the reasons I'm really glad you guys agreed to talk with me about this is because publicly, if I am representing like this entire group of people, as I have been talking publicly, there's things they don't want me to say, right? We differ on a few different things, and it'll be interesting to hear your guys' opinions here.
Sure.
Because I am for regulation, and we all know, all of us in the wild food world know that foraging it's been on the rise, mushroom hunting's been on the rise more every year.
Sure.
I see the views on my website grow. I see the comments I have to answer. It gets to be a lot, and every year it's more intense. So we need to be recognized as. I mean, I think Tim Clemens and then Forager, my good friend who's in the group with me too. One thing that he said is he's compared hunting, fishing, and foraging to 3 legs on a chair, and I really, really like that analogy. Because this is something where we could contribute. I don't think that we're going to get the time of day until we can contribute in a way similar to fishing and hunting. So if that's like, I got to pay $20 a year to get a mushroom hunting license where I can pick 5 pounds of mushrooms a day, I would be totally down for that. My friends want it to be like 40 pounds or something, like they're quoting all these things from Europe. Yeah, of course. These are old prodigy mushroom hunters. They want all their mushrooms. I totally get that. I totally support that. But I feel like we need to. Well, they don't want any limit at all. Is what they're trying to go with. They're trying to get this thing shut down so that it just like dies. And I think that regulation is inevitable. And I think that we just have to say like, hey, okay, do we got to pay like $20 a year? That's really not a big deal. Because then we will be contributing, and we can say like, hey, like we buy a license just like anyone, just like hunters, just like fishermen. The other tricky thing is, unlike those, and I'm not trying to badmouth hunting groups at all, but we don't have like billionaire backers to back and advocate for our interests.
Mm-hmm.
So like we kind of just have to make this like ragtag group of prophets that try to help bring awareness to some of these things. It's difficult.
Hey man, but we all know little hobbits can make big changes in the world, so I've got good hopes. But on the aspect of regulations, I mean, you're absolutely right. There's no reason why we shouldn't, be inclined. I think anybody in the right foraging mind would be inclined to pay back into the system to help conservation. It's something that I talk a lot about with. I have tons of friends that are foragers and fishers and everything, and we're all on the same team.
Yeah.
We're all trying to conserve the same areas. We all want the same end game. So if regulations and having a mushroom license like that, I'm totally in for it. Illinois is completely bereft of any regulation in foraging whatsoever, except for it's illegal.
Yeah, except for that we're under lockdown.
Yeah, but there's no mushroom license. There's no foraging certification or anything like that here in Illinois. So, I mean, I would honestly welcome it as a professional regulation, but then still have kind of like public limits. Don't say
Agreed.
Public people can't do it, but you should be expected to have a little bit less if you're not paying into the conservation that is very desperately needed.
Yeah, and that's so sad. It makes me so sad to hear that because we, like I said, it's such a patchwork of like laws that don't make any sense. Like, okay,
Yeah.
so we can commercially harvest the matsutake out of the Pacific Northwest and the chanterelles and a host of other species. But someone who wants to go pick black trumpets for dinner in Illinois cannot go and pick a handful of black trumpets. It's messed up.
It is.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
And there's other things that I've been noticing too. Like I've been saying, I feel like this is just the tip of the spear. So like one thing that the Mycological Society does is that they do diversity surveys. So we go out, and this is like the citizen science portion of mushroom hunting that is so cool. Is they'll go out and they go on a foray, and people get to find edible mushrooms, and they'll pick a lot of them. And they will pick poisonous mushrooms for the purpose of identification.
Sure.
And the DNR, that it really weirds them out. And they actually revoked the diversity survey permits, like all of the permits for the Mycological Society this year.
Oh,
and it
wow.
was really troubling. Yeah, and they let them back in, but they had a lot of restrictions. And just the restrictions, again, going back to bears and blueberries, it's the same kind of stuff. They just don't make sense. And, these specimens that the Mycological Society will pick, these things get sent to the Bell Museum of Natural History in Minnesota. This is what helps catalog our local species. And, just by being a mushroom hunter, you become a citizen scientist. And it's like this great scavenger hunt with like a Powerball ticket hidden in the woods because, the possibility exists. We know with mushrooms being like reclassified constantly, we know that the possibility exists. Like, hey, you could go outside and it is not out of the question that you could find something new. Like you absolutely could. Or you could find something that is at least interesting enough that scientists or mycologists may want to study it to help further mycology. Like what I've done. I've contributed a number of different times by scientists or mycologists will see my pictures or something online and say, hey, do you happen to have a dried specimen of this? Like, well, actually I do because I dry them because I'm going to eat them. And, okay, would you send them to us? And then I send them to them, and then we talk a little bit about it. I send them some images, and then, cool, it's in an published in an accredited, scientific journal. Like,
Wow.
That's crazy. Like, you're never going to have a deer hunter take his deer rack and send that into a scientist to figure out what species of deer it is.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
this is legitimate science going on that furthers our knowledge of the place where we live. And just to hear that they're messing with the Mycological Society's role in that, it really is frustrating. And it's like, no, we need to be going forward. That's like a step backward. Like, mycology still feels like this neglected science, and that it just does not get the time of day by the powers that be.
100% it doesn't, and it's easy to forget how fresh and honestly very new of a science it is. From what I recall, it wasn't even recognized as distinct from the plant kingdom until like the 1980s. So for the possibility for new discoveries and changes in genetic sequencing are happening all the time. Citizen science is definitely at an all-time high with mycology. And yeah, it is incredibly concerning that they're disrupting the potential, the process. Even here in the Chicago area in the last
Oh, hey, Steve.
Oh, hey, Mike.
Well, what's wrong, buddy?
Well, I just got this new water bottle, but it just looks so plain.
Well, have I got the store for you. Introducing the Wild Edible World Podcast Merch Store.
Wowie, wow!
It's the merch store where you can get all of your favorite podcasts merch for all your decorating purposes.
How do I find that?
Go to wildedibleworldpod.shopify.com or go to any of our Instagram and media accounts and view the link in the bio.
Wowie, wow!
Years, we were able to define that the Chicago chanterelle is a distinct chanterelle from other species. So we have our own endemic species of chanterelle here. We wouldn't know that without mycological organizations like the Illinois Mycological Association that is permitted to go out and do these forays. The amount of paperwork that they have to do is insane for a state like Illinois where it's completely illegal. And I know mycological clubs that are not associated with the state that get the cops called on them all the time.
Oh yeah,
You've been on them.
I've been present on those before. It's not fun to, and often enough it comes from an unsuspecting person on the trail that's saying, hey, there's a bunch of people out here picking mushrooms, not knowing that, hey, this is an educational thing. We're not trying to supply restaurants. We're not trying to do anything nefarious. It's just literally education. And to approach regulation from the standpoint that Minnesota's starting, and I think we're already a victim of, it's essentially book burning, right? It's trying to it's trying to get rid of knowledge that most people don't have, and there's a select few of us that are trying to pass it along. Michael and I started this podcast because we just wanted to spread a little bit of knowledge in bite-sized chunks so that people don't feel overwhelmed by it, and that we don't lose this education. And I think it's so wrong to approach it from that way.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree.
So you think you talked a lot about how it's definitely like a slippery slope. What other future issues would the current proposed regulations would lead into?
Yeah, well, I think it can be like a gradual crackdown. I think that it can, so it's like they can keep taking little things away, just gradually. My fear is that they'll take it all away, and I mean, no offense, it'll be like Illinois.
Yeah, no, 100%.
But I feel like it's really going to move. It's going to remove like a lot of equitable mushroom hunting land for people that live in urban areas. Like the majority of mushroom hunters in the state of Minnesota, they live in the Twin Cities, and we are so lucky that we have many state parks. It's 75,000 acres within or less than an hour's drive from like the Twin Cities proper. And if it becomes like not worthwhile to go to these parks, people would have to go like 2 hours north, and it can really like, you know, kind of kill some of the magic if we have to start sticking through all these restrictions, which don't make sense and are not based on science. You know, I think it's important to remember that just because something is a law, and I gotta be careful here. I'm trying to remember which one of these statements has got me in trouble in the past. It's happened a number of times. We have to remember that laws can be changed, and laws historically, there have been some really messed up laws. And just because it's a law, it does not necessarily mean that it is in the best interest of the ecology of our environment or with the people that live here. And a good example is just another example is butternut trees. So in Minnesota, butternut trees are endangered because of the butternut canker. In Wisconsin, they are not endangered, and there's butternuts all over the place. They still have butternut canker, but it's legal to harvest butternuts. In Minnesota, it is completely illegal to touch the tree in any way, shape, or form. And the way that the law is worded, it is illegal for the state nursery to harvest butternuts for the purposes of propagation.
What? That is so that's so anti, like, that doesn't seem conducive to.
Yeah, I need to read that a couple times.
I'm speechless.
Yeah, I know. So, this tree is endangered. You would think, hey, maybe we should try planting these trees that are endangered and that grow in Minnesota. Like, maybe we should try to help them. Like, oh no, like the state organization is going to have to apply for a variance to do that. And people have brought that law up a number of times, and there have been efforts to overturn it. But it's like, man, in the scheme of things, people don't care about butternut trees.
Right.
You know, like, not that many people are thinking about that. This is not like a huge priority. So the fact that it is completely nonsensical, the way that the law is worded, it just, these things just fall through the cracks. And I'm afraid that things like that are going to keep happening. And we're just going to have this giant Byzantine patchwork of laws that are not based on science, that are different from state to state and are in conflict with each other and don't make any sense.
Yeah.
Like, that sounds like a nightmare to me.
That's terrifying for sure.
So it's not based in science, and from what we've heard, there's not really any logical procession to these regulations and concepts that they're trying to put in place. Why do you think that they're doing this?
Well,
besides the bear, what's the actual? What's the motive?
Yeah, I think it's a knee-jerk reaction. I think there were some things. I think they probably got a couple phone calls about people complaining about mushroom hunters, and I'm glad you asked that, because that's a great thing to bring up. So we have a lot of Eastern European mushroom hunters here around the Twin Cities and just in Minnesota in general. And when they go out hunting, and honestly, I think it's like a beautiful thing. They bring out 5-gallon buckets, but it's like their thing. And they bring out the 5-gallon buckets when they're harvesting anything, currants, whatever. When they go to the WEWP places, I usually don't like to see them because they will take all the currants there. but with mushrooms in the woods, you'll have the parents with their 5-gallon buckets, and then all the children, and then the grandparents. Dude, this is so cool because this is a family unit foraging outing. And, you know, I don't know, most of the people that I know in the United States, it's like this is a very solitary thing.
Yeah.
You know, maybe I'll bring a friend or two out with me when I'm going to pick mushrooms or berries or something. But I don't bring my entire family as a communal food gathering event. And I think it's really cool. But some people complain, and some people don't know, and they see, oh my God, these people have 5-gallon buckets filled with mushrooms, and they're going into parks. They also don't know that what's in those 5-gallon buckets. Because I can tell you, if you open up those 5-gallon buckets and dump them out, you're going to see a lot of mushrooms that most mushroom hunters do not like to eat.
For sure.
It's the swillas. It's all the russellas.
Mm-hmm.
It's these traditionally harvested species that they enjoy that I may find disgusting. So it's like good for them. Hey, go out and enjoy all. You have all the slippery jacks. Stay away from the shadow. You have all the slippery jacks that you want. But they harvest in these large amounts because they're going to cook and preserve them, and pickle them or whatever they want to do, salt them and ferment them, all kinds of stuff. So we know that they've probably gotten some phone calls about people harvesting mushrooms like that. There was also an incident last year, and I don't think I can mention his name publicly, but it is pretty common knowledge. There's a guy that leads, they're less mushroom forays and more like mushroom parties, at state parks and at state land. And a lot of times there's like, this guy's he's well known for doing these events, and he definitely appeals to and you guys know what I'm talking about when I say this, like the party aspect of mushroom community.
Sure.
Okay, like the one person that always chimes in with well, what kind of mushroom is this? that you want to smack upside the head at a foray. Yeah, he attracts those people. And I worked with him once or twice for a few events, and I found that the guy was just kind of a shyster, and I felt like he did not represent the community well. And that's kind of just the beginning there. But he led a foray at a park the same day that the Mycological Society led a foray at a park. And I think he had 60 people with him, and they absolutely trashed an area. Yes. Okay, and this was last year. So not only do they have two groups doing, with groups over 20, the Mycological Society, I want to say it was 30 people or something, but you got one group that's causing a problem. But if you unpack that a little bit, that's not that they were mushroom hunters causing a problem, but this is not a mushroom hunting problem.
Right.
This is a group size problem. So thinking of it as casting mushroom hunters as people that cause problems that's not part of the issue here. It's just a group size thing. And there's plenty of other examples of people that mistreat state land when they are out enjoying their hobbies.
Sure.
The one example I brought up in the NPR interview is I said, and this is so true, you go into northern Minnesota during bear season, and it looks like Coors cans grow in the woods. Or there's other groups, other outdoor recreational activities that disrupt the land and can ruin things, but they get stuff built for them all the time, like mountain bike trails. And I like riding a fat tire bike in the woods. I'm usually carrying my mushroom backpack when I'm doing it, but that absolutely disrupts stuff too. So it's more of it's not a mushroom hunting issue. That specifically is a group size issue. And I mean, this is kind of, it's kind of beside the point, but it's sad that we could crack down on mushroom hunters and plant foragers. It's illegal to pick any plants in Minnesota at all. But it's nothing for us to bulldoze a lot and kill 1,000 trillions to put up a dollar store. There's this general paradigm of people want to think of our wild places as they have this preservationist mindset where they think that the woods need to be a museum.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just the wrong way to think about it. The woods, they can be an interactive learning space where occasionally, you can learn about things and hopefully find some food if you're lucky. There's such a better way for us to think about our wild places than that.
Yeah, it's so easy for our species, I think, and in general, especially the American attitude, it's so easy for us to forget where we came from and how the human species has been so closely associated with all the plants and animals outside for all of our history up until the last, give or take several hundred years,
So it's definitely really distressing to see. And what you said about them just bulldozing like a whole area of Trilliums to put in a Dollar General or some shit, that is absolutely so accurate. They want to preserve it for their profit margins necessarily, and treat it like a museum.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. These same people that are making these regulations are the same people that are like mystified when you grow a tomato in your garden other than a big boy or a celebrity or something along those lines. You know what I mean?
An actual heirloom.
Yeah, it's sad, man.
Yeah.
It's sad because it's knowledge that you can eat, you know, and it's sad because
Yeah, good say.
yeah, freaking nuts. Sad stuff.
So just kind of to divert from is there anything else you want to say about the regulations or anything? Is there any other, like, what steps can we take to help you with this cause if we don't live in Minnesota?
Well, if you don't live in Minnesota, there's really not much you can do. But the thing is, one of the reasons I wanted to get on and talk with other people about this around the country that aren't in Minnesota is because we're seeing more laws come out like this. Like there's some that there's going to be some coming in Wisconsin, and it's going to be in other states too. And if it starts happening in your state, if you don't have a bunch of messed up regulations already, you can contact me. I can tell you what I know. I can give you templates of the letter that we sent to the governor that our lobbyists sent to the governor. I can give you a template of a letter that you can send to your state representatives and kind of walk people through how to do that. But just getting the word out there I think is good to do.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and I think that's super cool that you're willing to do that. And I think to use your Eastern Europeans with their 5-gallon buckets, I think that whether you're in Illinois or Minnesota or Wisconsin or whatever state, let's grab our 5-gallon buckets and let's,
normalize
some
it.
knowledge. Yeah,
Normalize it a little. I actually recently visited the Twin Cities a couple months ago, and for the natural abundance that y'all have in the Twin Cities, and it was amazing. I saw more people, like you, exactly as you said, entire families out there harvesting food, more people harvesting and foraging than I've seen in the Chicago area in person in like probably 5 years total. Like all the people I've seen in this area combined, I saw more in the Twin Cities over like 3 or 4 days out foraging. So it really is incredible. There really are people out there still doing it, and it was exactly like Eastern European folks out there, people whose traditions are still like really intact and everything. So I thought it was incredible. It was beautiful.
Yeah, and I think just to clarify on my 5-gallon bucket thing, I don't actually mean go fill up 5-gallon buckets with things from the woods. I mean, let's take Alan's knowledge and, let's coordinate, let's share what we know in a healthy way, and maybe we can help direct some of these regulations.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for being the spokesperson for this, putting in your own personal energy and time to try and get this kind of message out, and using your platform in a really helpful way.
Yeah, no, and thanks for having me on. I want to live in a state where our wild places aren't seen as some museum where nature is fragile, and I want to live in a place where laws are based on science.
Yeah. You and us both. If you don't mind, like a little bit of a lightning round, there's a few questions we like asking most of the foragers that we have on the show.
Sure. Yeah. Let's do it.
Just a little bit about like your personal history and stuff. So do you remember like the first memory you ever had of eating a wild food?
The first memory of eating any wild food would be when I was sous chef at Il Vesco Vino, and it was probably a ramp.
Nice.
Right on.
That's a good first.
So you were introduced to like a lot of foraged goods while working at that restaurant?
That was the first restaurant where I tasted some wild foods. Basically, chef saw that I was really talented, and he passed me up for a sous chef promotion, and I got really pissed. So because I got really pissed, he gave me a little part of the menu and said, "This is Alan's like weekly changing special section," and he would bring in special ingredients. And even though it wasn't like a wild themed restaurant, he had a friend that picked a lot of things and thought, okay, well, Alan can have fun with this, and maybe he won't be as pissed off anymore.
That's really fun. That's interesting compensation.
So you've almost been groomed to go on a show like Chef versus Wild and like
absolutely.
kick some ass.
Yeah, because that was because that restaurant was only the first. Then I went to another restaurant where the menu changed every single day, and we didn't use any products from within 200 miles of Minnesota, and I wrote the menu.
Oh, wow. Jeez.
Every day. So that was like, now I saw all the different things from the entire growing season. And then after that, when I ran my own restaurants, I supplied them with everything that basically I picked myself.
Oh, cool.
My eye just started to twitch a little bit. I have a few years, like 20 or so, in restaurants and more of the corporate side, but like to imagine changing a menu every day with all local ingredients, yeah, my eye definitely just started to twitch a little bit. You're a saint.
Yeah, no, it was every day, and then at my last restaurant, I did it every week, but it's still, to do something like that, I mean, I might have 80 purveyors.
Wow.
You know, at my last place, we had, the list was like 80.
That
it's like one person, you only bring us currants.
Oh my God.
You know, another person, you only bring us honeyberries and a certain type of melon. Like, I take the best of everything I can find and make this huge patchwork of only the greatest stuff that we can find in the area. Yeah, it made the job insanely difficult, but extremely rewarding at the same time. All right, next question.
So next question, what's something you foraged this week?
This week?
Or today, if you've been out today.
Yeah.
Linden seeds and wild caraway seeds, wild blueberries, Galensoga purslane, amaranth, lamb's quarters, strawberry spinach.
Ooh. I love strawberry spinach.
Yeah.
That might be about it. And some bellflowers.
Okay, cool. What do you think is your favorite? Do you have something that you look forward to every year? Does it change?
Whatever's popping right now.
Whatever's popping. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, very popular answer.
Matsutake in the fall for sure.
Okay. I think that's the end of our lightning round. I can't think of any more.
It's all good.
That we usually ask people. But so I guess we'll just kind of wrap up if you're good with it.
Yeah, it's cool.
All right, cool. Well, it's been an awesome pleasure to have a little chat with you. Really inspired by the feelings you have about these regulations. We totally agree with you here on the show about, the regulations aren't bad. They just have to be done very mindfully, and you can't just like slap on the easiest restrictions. Just like, all right, moving on to the next thing, and just like, there has to be care taken because it's such an important mainstay in so many people's lives, and we're all learning, I think, as in the last couple of years, that nature needs to be more of a part of our lives than ever before. So thank you for your work in doing that, and otherwise you're also just a general inspiration for, if I may speak for both of us, the two of us here at the show. You're a really awesome chef in your creativity in your dishes, and the inspiration and sources that you draw from historically are very fascinating, and it's been a wild ride being able to follow you in the last couple of years, and it's been a pleasure to meet you as well.
Yeah, and your presence on social media, not only presence, but like activity, how active you are on social media is just so cool, man. I don't think I've ever commented on one of your posts like, oh, this looks great, or I have to try this, and you haven't, said something very reassuring.
Yeah, I talk a lot about how the people in the foraging community, even though like a lot of the folks, even somebody like Alexis Nichols, who has around 1 million followers, we're still a bunch of micro celebrities anyway. But when you're inside the genre, shall we say, it's still really awesome when people you really admire are so accessible. And you make yourself the image of accessibility with responding to most of your comments, and always being very well spoken in your recipes on your website as well. So kudos.
Thanks. I really try to be. I try to be active. I try to get to every single one. I sit down. I have time every day, which is going to be about this time, like after dinner. I sit down on the couch and I answer every comment on every platform. It's become kind of a monster because it's like, it's YouTube and then the website, and then direct messages, and then Instagram, and then Facebook, and then text messages. But you know what? It's part of the game.
Yes, sir. Yeah, it is. And I can only imagine. I'm almost a little overwhelmed with the questions, interactions I have, and I'm not nearly as active or thorough as you are. So I can only imagine what a beast it has become. So cheers to that. We'll just close up. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been awesome. And everybody follow @foragerchef if you don't already on all platforms. His website, foragerchef.com, is an incredible wealth of information. So thanks again, Alan.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
We'll see you later. See you at the Wild Harvest Festival.
Yep.
Bye.